everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cybersmart Conversations with Harsha. I'm so delighted to be joined today by Monica DeZio, Director of Marketing and Innovation at Crown Property Management. Monica is a specialist in the branding and repositioning of commercial assets. She has a broad range of expertise with a background in brokerage and a past in the sales and marketing of low rise residential communities. Thank you for joining, and how are you doing today?
Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Today's topic is real estate innovation and trends. But before we get to those questions, I would love to hear more about you and your background.
Yeah, for sure. So my background, I guess the story starts with my foundation, I guess, which was after school working for a developer in HR, which is what I had studied, and took a pretty strong pivot into marketing for a low-rise developer, then Monarch Homes, now Mattamy Homes. And my career started there with my love for real estate kind of starting with those roots. After a few years, I met Scott Watson of JLL, and we developed a new position for me at JLL on the office leasing side of things. So I took my marketing background from real estate on the residential side to the office leasing space. I got my real estate license and worked at JLL for a while, and one of our biggest clients there was Crown. And after a few larger projects with them, I eventually moved over to be at Crown, where I've been since 2014 now. So my roles have always involved leasing and marketing. So my perspective is always a little bit different than most in the office leasing space, where I kind of bring this, I like to call it flair, on the marketing side of things. And I've worked in a few different capacities now at Crown. We look at value add office opportunities. So it's really a fun experience to be taking kind of Class B suburban assets and injecting some life into them and creating a story and a brand and trying to sell that vision. And so, yeah, really where I'm focusing these days is a little bit less on the sales and marketing and more of late on the corporate side of things. So I'm looking internally on our teams and where we're innovating and how we can, future-proof our buildings through whether it's tech or just mitigating risk through various avenues that we're pursuing. So it's kind of a mixed bag. When you talk to me, there's the background in sales and marketing and leasing, and now kind of taking that to the next level with a broader kind of view of what we're doing as a company.
That's interesting because you have this varied background, so that's where how you look at it comes from a different perspective, and that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So now coming back to our topic, and we have seen the real estate market, and you'll agree with this, is getting a digital makeover, and like it's already making waves with the rise of PropTech.
Yeah.
Like PropTech is all set to streamline age-old processes and applications that are there in the building to run the operations. And we hear this from augmented reality to even virtual reality of workplace, homes, and these chatbots giving 24/7 tenant support, and even the use of biometric for security. And like these are some of the ways PropTech could enhance the building operations and tenant experience. So where do you see the biggest opportunity to apply PropTech in the business?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and it's an interesting time in history to be talking about this, right? Like with COVID, the last 14 months of all of our lives have been accelerated in the way of digital everything. So I guess my short answer is digital solutions are the future, but it's so vast, especially in the space that we operate in. Like for us as office owners, and it's interesting to even step back maybe and just look at historically what's happened, right? Historically, CRE has been so slow to adapt and evolve. There's an interesting study recently by George Karras of our labs, who was talking about the biggest obstacle to innovation in commercial real estate historically has been time. No one has time to allocate to evolving. And the spreadsheet works, that's how we do it. Just stick to the spreadsheet. Why change it? But that hasn't been an option since last March. So that notion of like, wait, or we don't have budget this year, it's not okay anymore. So everyone has had to kind of fast forward everything. So where is there the most opportunity? I think in the space that I kind of operate in, it's how we're engaging with tenants, how we're communicating with them. It's no longer okay to just push content out and hope for the best. This is more of a dialogue now, and people need to be part of that solution. So we're looking at more mobile apps, for an example, of how we're using that to engage in a dialogue. Talking about tours, leasing space is no longer meeting people at a building, right? Like, we hope we get there, but when we're in lockdown, it's more critical than ever to use tech. And, we've used VR historically, but even the notion of video as like your baseline for selling space, everything is now digital. And are we doing, FaceTime tours of buildings and this kind of thing? It's really about how you're packaging that solution now. You used to be able to do all the selling in person, but you need to have a really good offering up front to make sure that you can sell when you're not in person, which is a whole other podcast. But then when you look at the buildings too, we're talking about how they're evolving, right? And it's not just to say, cool, we have a mobile app, but people want to feel safe. So tech has to solve for, once people are back in the workplace, how do they feel? Are they going to come back the second day? Do they just come back the first day and run? No, we need them to understand that we're doing everything that we're doing behind the scenes in terms of indoor air quality and, now occupancy sensors in our common spaces. And a lot of this ties back to the communication and the messaging. So we're doing a lot of the things behind the scenes, but we need to make sure as property managers and building owners that we are, we're telling the right story through the right mediums to our building occupants so that they feel safe and know that we're doing the right things behind the scenes. So I think, yeah, the digital solutions touch every facet of all of our lives now more than ever. They're going to continue to do that. I don't think this will slow down. I think this is just a catalyst to continue to push us all forward. And yeah, safety is an important one for sure.
Yeah, and that you mentioned how we used to have the Excel sheets and Word documents, like everything was paper-based. So definitely, like, one thing is increase in automated workflows. But you also mentioned about occupancy sensors and a use of different health and wellness sensors and applications and solutions.
Mm-hmm.
All these are tied to cost.
Sure are.
So now coming to that point, like, reducing operating cost is one of the best ways. Like, everyone is looking to improve profitability of the building.
Yeah.
And then decrease the expense. But on the flip side, we know that these automated workflows definitely helps in operations and saves time and then the cost. So, but like, you can't just stop the necessary task, but otherwise, like, you end up with the rundown building with few tenants when it comes to automating these workflows, or when there's a drive for these operating costs with the property. So one of the areas in which the building operations software, they help reduce the operating cost is the work order management. So, like, how can you reduce the cost while maintaining the property and satisfying tenants?
Yeah, and that's our MO as value add real estate owners. We are, our bottom line is to have cost efficient space for our tenants while still, of course, having, strong returns for our investors. So that is like a very well aligned question for me. And the answer is, we have to be smart and we have to think outside the box. A lot of it is rudimentary, like when we're in lockdown and there's nobody in the buildings, there's no need to have all of our fitness center equipment plugged in and running, for example. So we have task forces internally that are focused on efficiencies like that, on the sustainability side of things, the energy side of things. We're working with the cities that we operate buildings in on those sorts of efficiencies. So we're always striving to tap into those kinds of cost savings wherever we can. And, we strive for certifications in ESG and sustainability across the board as well. We report on GRESB. We're issuing our first ESG report this spring. So we're very excited to be more and more active in that space. But at the same time, tapping into all these technologies, and this has been, I think, the case for so many different owners and landlords, everyone has adapted over the past, like, let's say, even as narrow as 5 years to implement all kinds of different technologies, all kinds of different platforms. And, they're all rocking their space. But at this point, we're all using so many different platforms that there are inefficiencies, So I think the next phase of this too is, as we're looking at tech, is, it's super that you have 5 really great platforms, but are they talking to each other? Is there overlap? Is there some kind of solution that's integrating everything together? So I think that's where we're spending a lot of our time, or that's where I'm spending a lot of my time now, is, focusing on where we should be streamlining, what's working best for us, and what needs to maybe fall off, and how we can get to the next step. Because there are so many great tools out there. A big one for us is the acquisition of Rise by VTS. So we're very big VTS users on the leasing asset management side of things. We're actually the first Canadian headquartered company to sign on with VTS years ago. And we've just signed on more recently with Rise as a mobile occupant engagement app. So the announcement of the merger a month or two ago is a really exciting one for me, because we're now able to streamline, all of the great stuff we're doing on the occupant engagement side of things, and all of the stuff that we're doing on the leasing side of things, and really build kind of a super platform that's going to be a much more engaging tool for us internally, on the operation side, and then as well, like, our tenants will feel the effects of that. So I think it's about, finding solutions, and they're going to be different for everyone, but solutions that move everything forward.
And definitely, like, everything you do to run the property is to keep the tenants happy. But and I remember you mentioned about integration of solutions, how they talk with each other. So what's your opinion on solutions that are used for preventive maintenance, like avoiding the costly equipment breakdowns?
Yeah, preventative maintenance is critical, and a lot of what we're going to be seeing, I'm sure, in the future is smart, right? Where everyone's talking about smart technologies, and smart buildings. And it's not enough to be smart, but you have to continue to grow from there, and you need integrated solutions for the future. So I think, the ability to gather this data and mine the appropriate data and understand trends, is the most critical piece of all of this. Historically, I think commercial real estate's been kind of weak on having appropriate data. And I think, getting to that place where all of our systems are operating and anticipating what's going to happen next in our buildings is certainly the future.
Yeah, and definitely, like, new technology, it opens new potential for real estate owners and managers, but also opens the new doors for threat actors and hackers.
Yes, which is how we came to meet. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, but then you need a strategy to effectively use the technology. And like, there are these platforms that have automated systems and processes. Like, you need to automate these workflows, apps. But then you have these data-driven and decision-making platforms, like how you integrate different platforms, and you pull data and you generate insights. And then you mentioned about occupancy sensors and devices that monitors occupancy, and any health and wellness and different aspects of a building. So adopting the right tech solutions is definitely critical for real estate companies, and that's what is one of your role, to look at these solutions, especially now when everyone is adjusting to this new norm operating environment. So what are the 3 PropTech trends that you are seeing that disrupting the property and the real estate industry, and what one needs to watch for in the coming year?
Yeah, so I think a no-brainer is safety. Anything to do with ensuring people have the right tools, have the right information and, feel safe to return to the workplace is of utmost importance to us, and I'm sure to a lot of our peers. So anything to do, and like things that we're doing at our portfolio in this space, anything from increasing communications. I mentioned the mobile app that we're rolling out. And we're doing so much behind the scenes that it's really a matter of telling that story to the people that are coming into our buildings. So behind the scenes, of course, we're increasing cleaning, and we're using occupancy sensors to ensure that we have, whether we've had too many people in our bathrooms, as an example, that we're ordering enough supplies to make sure that our cleaners are stocked. It's about coming up with solutions for contactless building entry. And, we've updated doors, for example, across the portfolio. We've updated IAQ across the portfolio. And yeah, it's really a matter of sensors, anything in this space that helps us to communicate to our tenants that our buildings are great and ready for them to come back. So that's a big one. Certainly, and you touched on this already, cybersecurity is a huge one, especially in our space. As governance becomes, or it has, I'm going to restart the cybersecurity one. Cybersecurity is a really big one as well. It has been of importance in the past, and I think today more than ever, it's even more critical. So we're thinking about cybersecurity from pre-acquisition through the life cycle of the building. And it's a really critical risk to everyone operating in today's digital environment. So I think, with more and more technologies and platforms that are being integrated, there's just more and more exposure. So it's about mitigating that risk and making sure that we're working smartly. And then the big one, and this touches my day-to-day, is just the differences in sales and the differences in marketing, and this notion of a tour being virtual now, and just complete paradigm shift to like the historic, handshake of two men in a suit in an office space on a tour, right? This is really outside the box from what the norm was even 5 years ago on a leasing tour, and in selling office space. So the virtual tour, I don't think any of these things are a passing trend. I think they're going to be here to stay, and everyone needs to, and has been, evolving rapidly, but I think that's just going to continue to accelerate. So yeah, virtual tours, I think, and like digital selling are big ones, safety, as I mentioned. And yeah, I think cybersecurity is just going to be more and more important moving forward. There's my little sales pitch for you, see?
But it's great to hear like how you combined the marketing experience with digital selling.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're one and the same now, truly.
Yeah. And that's interesting to know. And definitely you need a business case for implementing the technology to begin with. And then it's important to assess how you'll roll it out.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so thank you, Monica. Thank you for sharing those insights. And it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, it was great to chat. Thanks so much.
Thank you.